Good morning, everybody. On a
So
very
funny to say
unusual,
morning.
yes, in a very unusual time slot here for Isles Talk. This is season 7, episode 12, Pucks and Bagels. Um,
Coffee
here we
too.
go. Cinnamon raisin with cream cheese and my coffee in here. And Gary's got his coffee because he's going to need it to deal with me this morning.
Nah, I've dealt with worse.
That's true. Matthew's actually up. I'm a little shocked by this. So, again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Isles Talk. Um, we've got some stuff for you. Thank you, sir. I'm eclectic. I eat all every kind of bagels. I was just in the mood for cinnamon raisin this time.
Egg
Um,
everything for me.
yes. So, listen, we've got some stuff for you. We're going to talk about the Olympics, and then we'll give our thoughts on that. And then we're going to have our usual Don't Blame Gary segment. And what that is, we'll get into it a little bit later. Sometimes we get rewarded with some news, sometimes we don't. Tonight's one of the, see, I did it. Today is one of those days where, we are allowed to pass on some information for to you guys heading into the trade deadline, and we'll talk about that. And then instead of water cooler talk today, folks, it is going to be coffee and chat. So no water cooler talk. It's going to be coffee and chat. All the rules still apply. We'll take your questions, comments, your. I won't put Gary through this, but I'll play armchair GM with you guys. But I don't think you'll have to once we get done. So, Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's no problem for me getting up, early in the morning and chatting because I'm usually on a 6:45 train into the city. So this is nothing. It's all right.
Nice. It's fine. It's fine.
Mm.
Everything's fine. So, listen, before we continue, and I just found this out. Quick happy birthday going out to Tommy, uh, Tommy Baffy over at the Drive for Five. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, old man.
It's his birthday. We don't know how old he is, so I'll just be that friend. Happy 60th. He's not
Hey, I've been there,
60.
done that.
He's not 60, but hey, why? Well, he's probably a little younger, but he's not here to defend himself. So happy 60th birthday going out to Tommy, and we'll go from there. So
Mhm.
yeah, all right. So let's start the season. Let's start the show off. The Olympics, but um, that was we needed this in the worst way. It's been what 16 years, and to all of our friends north of the border. That gold medal game was phenomenal, but give me your thoughts. I don't know if you were able to watch that entire tournament, all the countries, or if you just specifically watched the gold medal game. Give me your thoughts on the Olympics.
No, I watched a lot of it, listened to a lot of it when I was at work. But I I did get to see the gold medal game because we were at the Coliseum for a season holder team signing event. So they
Coliseum.
had we had to wait outside for about an hour and a half before we got in, and they had it on the big screen, by the entrance to the park. So it was on there when they let us in. It was on all the TVs all around the concourses. Fortunately, no audio, but at least we were able to see it. And the winning goal came about a half an hour before we got the players came out to sign autographs because obviously they were watching the game too. But I'm old enough to have seen 1980. Um, I think it was probably one of the greatest hockey games I ever saw, just for the state of the game, not looking at who the teams were, but the game was absolutely fantastic. And it was great that you had the two best teams basically in the world fighting it out. But the aftermath was going to be the aftermath no matter what team won. If obviously USA won and Canada was moaning and groaning about everything. And I think if the roles were reversed, it would be exactly the same thing.
Right.
Um, but obviously, Jack Hughes will be in the same sentence as Mike Eruzione, which is good for him. It's gained him the national spotlight. Um, Claire was telling me after the game, she goes, I know Jack Hughes was a devil, but I didn't know of him, didn't really know much about him, didn't know what he looked like, all this other stuff. But, like I said, he should never have to buy a beer in a bar in the United States for the rest of his life.
No.
Uh,
Correct.
no. I know the bitching and moaning was about the 3-on-3 and overtime, but that's that's the NHL, way, and that's the IIHF way. So, you can't moan and groan about it. I know they did it 10 minutes instead of 5 and whatever, but we all know what 80% of games in overtime finish in overtime other than the shootout. So it is the way it is. But the last thing I want to leave, and it's more of a moral thing. There's been a lot. Again, I am not putting politics into this statement, but it's going to lead a little bit. But to me, anyone that placed politics as an issue with Team USA is completely wrong. Those guys were playing for the flag. They were not playing for a political party. They were not playing
For a Big
for
Mac.
What?
They were not playing for a Big Mac.
No, they were not playing for a Big Mac. They were playing for the Stars and Stripes. And this should be, as it was in 1980, there was not almost as much political divide then as there is now. But you know what? Everybody came together for those 3 letters that were on the jersey. No matter what side of the road you lean, the red, white, and blue was more important. And that's what it should have been now. Yes, did things happen that may have pushed people to a certain way? Maybe. But you know what? People should be proud to be an American, regardless of your political beliefs or whatever. And that both those hockey teams, the women's even more than the men, really deserve, all the praise in the world from everybody in America. And that's the way I'm going to leave it. But as far as the tournament goes, it was great. I mean, I watched as much of Canada as I could. I watched some of Czechia just to see how Palat was doing. But it was a great tournament. Italy surprised the heck out of me how they kept in with games, including Sweden when they were outshot like 60 something to 23 and only lost by 1 goal, I think. They really played their hearts out. So every tournament game was a lot of fun. And I'm glad the NHL players got in, and I'm glad that things turned out the way they did.
Nice. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm going to start off with that women's championship. Um, that USA Canada game. I had friends who are friends of the NHL, but I was like, "Yo, gold medal game, women's. Why we? What are we doing?" And they were like, "We're watching that." I said, "Oh yeah, we are." That was the perfect. Again, another chance to promote women's hockey was that game. And that game was absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things I probably would want to see changed a little bit, but I don't know if that was just because it was the Olympics or whatnot. So I'll hold off on my opinion later on. The game itself was great, but to
Mm-hmm.
see the game winning goal scored
Wow.
like that won the guys over. That won everybody over. Even their wives who were watching it, they're like, "Oh, that was pretty." And they normally don't watch hockey. That moment for the women's team was phenomenal, and I was able to introduce them to Hillary Knight because they were all like, "Who is that?" I said, "I don't care what league you're in." I said, "If the Devils are in the playoffs, if the Islanders are in the playoffs," I said, "you want her on the team because she is your Captain Clutch." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime in the playoffs this year, if you need a clutch goal, can we please sign Hillary Knight to the NHL real quick, please? Just to get us that goal. Please. Like she delivers every time. So um the women's that championship game was phenomenal. So, they got we got a few more, you know, women's hockey fans moving on. Yeah, Megan Keller, that backhand, and she was a defenseman, I think. She's just, well, she nailed it. So, maybe we'll be going to a couple of professional hockey, women's hockey down in UBS because I told them we've got one down there. So that might be it. And as far as the men's go, this was inject this into my veins every year if we could. If we can come up with a small or similar setup every year, like a Four Nations, something like that every year instead of the All-Star game, please. Even if we had to do a Four Nations, but play not by the NHL rules, play by the IIHF. No fights, no nothing. If you're going to play like international like that, play by the international rules so that way you don't have to worry about injuries, you know, as so much during a Four Nations. But this Olympics, I loved with the teams that weren't heavily favored or at all. I loved the effort that was given by these teams because it was like, yeah, you might beat us, but we're not going to make
Italy
it
was
easy on you.
Italy was the example.
Yeah, yeah. Italy's goaltender was phenomenal. I don't care what that score was. His save percentage was outstanding. He faced the most shots out of everybody,
Oh,
and
no
he
question.
looked
Yeah.
good. He looked good.
I mean, you're
So
going to
I,
see him.
I,
He's an Anaheim draft pick.
I believe he's a third rounder. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the tournament. Um, Politics aside, and I understand why. Russia, as for a hockey team, they
Needs
need to
to be
be in
there.
there. They need to be there. As a hockey team, they need to be there. Um, that would be even better. My next hockey jersey is going to be a Brock Nelson Team USA jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I I thought Brock, and I'm going to say Bo as well. Brock and Bo both played a similar two-way style. Bo was all over the place for Team Canada. I thought he was very noticeable. I thought Brock, as the games went on, he was quietly doing his job, doing the little things, but he was just as effective. So I think my next jersey somewhere in here is going to be his number 29, Team USA, and that's got family history now all over the place. And I was
Mm-hmm.
very very happy for Brock. Um, that's a nice little lineage going down there. As far as the game itself, Canada and US, Gary, this goes back to what, and we're going to kind of tie this in with the Islanders as well. Defense and goaltending wins you that championship.
Oh yeah.
The only difference between Team USA and Canada was the goaltending. The goaltending was better for the US than it was for Canada. And Canada,
And
yes, they had this.
it wasn't bad for Canada. Bennington did play very
No,
well.
no, no. I
I thought he
mean,
did.
you can make an argument that Bennington might be this generation's Billy Smith in terms of being a money goaltender.
Mhm.
He just steps up whenever whenever it, it it arises, whenever he'll step up to that occasion. So, um, yeah, going to the 3-on-3. This is the only thing I'm going to say. And for all our Canadian friends and followers, we do love you guys. We're all having beers now. It's over. But the ones complaining on the 3-on-3, Canada had McKinnon, McCarr, and McDavid out there. And they lost with those three players on the ice. I don't think Canada has much of an excuse at this point, losing the way they did. You had arguably the three top players in the NHL, especially your top two centers and your top defensemen in the NHL against
Yep.
Team USA, and Team USA beat you. That's it. So, no, no, no.
No.
Sorry. No. No. Yeah. No. Schaefer didn't need to be there. Your top three for Canada needed to score something over there. They didn't. But the game itself, Hellebuck was phenomenal. I probably would have preferred 4-on-4 instead of 3-on-3. But again, it's TV, it's
That's the
ratings,
international rule.
it's the international rule. That's what it is. I don't have much, to say about that afterwards, but it was a phenomenal tournament. Definitely built up the sport of hockey. And,
And
I
that's
think
what they
moving
needed.
forward, yeah, they needed it. And I think something like the Four Nations every year before the Olympics would be a phenomenal idea. So we'll see what kind of all-star format goes
Even
on.
every 2 years. Even every 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, the year before and the year
So,
after the Olympics. I think that's a great idea.
right.
But again, I think you need to make it 6. Figure a way to make it 6. Add
Right.
Russia and maybe add either Czechia, Slovakia, somehow.
I agree. So, all right. Gary, did you watch that game
Yep.
a couple of nights ago?
I was at a viewing party in Farmingdale watching it. Yes. But before we go
Yeah.
into this,
Go ahead.
because it involves the team. If everybody remembers that's watching this show right now, in September, before the season started, someone was on this show saying that he was afraid, absolutely afraid of someone taking the ice for this team. He thought that he was concerned about the fact that he was going to be physically hurt or somehow stunt his way in that season. I want Paul Kreischer to come right up on the show after I'm finished talking and basically apologize to everyone listening to this show and anyone
Can't
else
do it
that's
yet.
listened in the past
No.
about his brutally bad mistake of predicting a certain player on this team.
I can't do that yet.
Yes, you
And
can. Yes, you can. It doesn't take too long. It's 2 words. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. You're going to look like a fool in a minute, but okay. I'm sorry.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Horrible timing, my friend, but I'm going to go along with this. I'm sorry, everyone. Bad timing, my friend. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. And folks, this is why Gary does not know what the hell's going on, and we're going to do that in a minute. Anyway, sticking with Schaefer for the rest of this season. Actually, it's been all season, but it's going to be prevalent now. We saw him take over when the Islanders were down 2-0 to Noah Dobson and the Montreal Canadiens. He comes back. He racks up the 2 goals. Is this going to be for the rest of this year? They go as far as Matthew Schaefer takes them?
I don't know. That's again that question though is hard to say
Yeah.
because I
Like
think
we
it
are
needs
literally
everybody.
that's and this is this, he's literally taking this team on his shoulders like he's done with so many other things in life before, and he's literally taking this team to a level. Um, the goaltending has to be there, of course, but Horvat's got to do his thing. Patrick Waugh is going to be doing his thing, but for me, the rest of this season is it just feels like they will go as far as Matthew Schaefer can take them. And that might even include the postseason, folks. Part of me
You know,
agrees
I
with this as well, Matthew.
obviously just going back, and it was a legitimate concern, due to the fact that Matthew only played 19 games the year before, and he really hasn't had the experience of going through the length of a season like this. But maybe the break helped or whatever. But even before the break, it didn't slow him down. You see that, and we call it generational talent and all that. Those types of players, even the Bobby Orrs and stuff of the late 60s, they didn't let their age be a factor in the way that they played. And that's Matthew Schaefer.
No, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I'm
but
saying,
but what I'm saying is it's very rare that you see that kind of a player in that spot. We're looking at the best defenseman in the league. You look at Cale Makar, but Cale Makar came into the league at 21 with a couple of years of experience in college. So he had that maturity going in. But, you don't, as much as we knew about Matthew before we drafted him and stuff, the scouts and everything else were just, and Shane Malloy can obviously add to that because we had him on our show. He said that there's things with this kid you won't see with anybody else. And we've been very lucky. And not only has that been apparent, with him, but obviously the nature, the personality, his talent has really spread to the other guys.
right,
Without even him on the ice in a lot of situations, it's made players better.
right.
He's made, I think Pulak has had a renaissance season because of Matthew. There's a couple of other guys that have had much better seasons, and maybe not because of Matthew, but I think maybe the influence.
Right.
It's spread on the team like wildfire. And that's something you can't calculate. You can't put into metrics.
Right.
And that's why I think metrics are good in a lot of cases, but this kind of thing you can't quantify.
Right.
And that's what's made this team 14 games over NHL 500 right now. Not their numbers, not their defense, but the locker room.
So we're going to segue right into that. This segment, ladies and gentlemen, it's been something we've been doing now for a couple of years. Every once in a while, Joe and I are allowed information during the season, throughout the season, um, to keep you guys updated when it comes to news, rumors, anything else, so on and so forth. And the process is simple. Joe and I do not come out with any kind of information unless we can both confirm it at different times. And in this case, we are allowed to say the following information. Having said that, um, Gary knows nothing at the moment. Gary's not supposed to know anything, um,
And
because
I
of
want
his,
it that way.
yes, and because of his affiliation with the Booster Club. So there's no singling out or anything else. So anything I say at this moment, not only are you hearing it for the first time, but this is also Gary hearing it for the first time as well. Um, Unfortunately for some of you, you probably won't like it. Um, but the information that we have gotten so far, Joe and I, is that number one, as of right now, 9:28, call it 9:30 this morning, February 28th, 2026, is that there is currently no deals on the table for the New York Islanders. Now, what does no deals mean? Has Matthew Darsh talked to a couple of NHL teams? Of course. That's called doing his due diligence. I don't care if it's Bill Torrey, Lou Lamoriello, Mike Milbury. If you're not talking to other GMs at this time of the year, you should be fired. It's common sense. It's SOP, standard operating procedures. Okay. They talk to everybody. Is there any kind of deal in place for the Islanders? The answer is no. Could that change by noon today? Absolutely. Could it change by Monday? Probably. Okay. But the Islanders are on a West Coast swing. Maybe something happens during the trip. But when I get told, and when Joe and I get told that there are no deals on the table right now, it's gonna have to be a last minute a la Ryan Smith trade. For those of you that remember that one, Ryan Smith was acquired, um, literally what we felt after the trade deadline. I believe that was 2006, correct?
Yep. 6.
Yeah, it was 2006. That was a trade where we sent, I believe it was Nilsson, Ryan O'Mara, and another first rounder to the Edmonton Oilers for Ryan Smith. That was also your Wade Dublowitz poke check postseason with Ted Nolan. Um, I if a trade of that magnitude comes around by the Islanders, that is on pace right now to being a trade, literally a trade deadline day trade. The other information that we are allowed to tell you, is that the Islanders' focus, again, it could change. It's a Saturday, 6 days before the trade deadline. Their focus at the moment is for an enforcer. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I have loved Matthew Schaefer, watching him play this year, I'm stunned that some of these defensive teams don't put a body on him when he's up at the top of the crease. Um, Having said that, I think having an enforcer around would be very helpful. I think the Islanders could use a little more muscle. And if this enforcer can also play a little regular on the fourth line, I think that would be a bigger benefit as well. What kind of enforcer we're looking at, Gary, we don't know.
No.
But as of right now on Saturday, there are no trades on the table for the New York Islanders at this moment. If everyone comes out, well, the Islanders are talking to this team, the Islanders have been in contact with that. It's a standing operating procedure. He should be talking to every team. It's normal. They're not really rumors, guys. But I think the focus for the Islanders at the moment is on the enforcer side. So, Gary, are you okay with making basically no deals or getting yourself an enforcer and just letting this team ride it out for the rest of the season?
Normally, I would say no, but again, this year, I really think because of the clubhouse, and again, I've seen it over the years, past years when I covered the team. The clubhouse, the locker room has always been pretty good, but from things that obviously we see, and we see it on the Islander videos that they've made, as well as the hearing from the beat writers, Ethan and Andrew, and that this is a special locker room right now. And again, going back, it's all because, and not by his necessarily doing, but by his being here. Schaefer has made that room infectious.
Bingo.
They really truly love each other, period. And sometimes chemistry is a bigger factor than talent. We all know in the past 10, 15 years, when we were down or tied going into the second period, you had that fear that they were going to blow it with 3 minutes left or
Right.
with a minute left. Okay. The stat that came up during the game at the end of the second period, I believe it was Thomas that said it, that when the teams are tied going into the third period, the team that had the most wins was the Islanders. We
Mm-hmm.
can't say, we never could say that.
No.
And that one sentence alone is reason why you don't necessarily want to change things. How many times has a team made a big deal and 25, 30 days later they regret making it because it messed up the room, it messed up the line structure, it messed up everything. And Lou didn't do a lot necessarily at deadlines. There were a couple instances where Garth made a splash, but not necessarily did much. And I think in this case, more than any other year that I can go, even just to the Ryan Smith deal,
Right.
I think this is the time where you really don't have to do much. Yes, the enforcer's a great idea. And putting them on the fourth line. I mean, Gatcombe, McLean, you got
Easy.
Duclair still.
Yeah.
Interchanging that fourth line isn't going to necessarily hurt things, but you send a message to the league that you ain't effing around with this team with Matthew Schaefer if you've got a real true enforcer. I mean, kudos to Scott Mayfield that goes in and steps up. Kudos to Anders Lee, a great captain who steps up and does what's needed to be done. But you need to have a presence of somebody saying, you want to mess around with us, we'll mess around with you. And I think that's important. So saying before this weekends or this next weekends, if we don't make a big deal, don't cry about it. Don't whine about it, because it's the general manager at this point that has full faith and confidence in his team and doesn't want to mess up the apple cart. So put that in your mind before the trade deadline, folks, and we'll be fine.
I'm sure we're going to get asked this question anyway. Um, and we don't technically have to answer this now, but this kind of goes in line with this whole season, the trade deadline, and moving forward. Are you okay with Anders Lee and JG Pageau coming back next season
Yes,
or even 2 season? Okay.
yes. I think they need a player. I think they need a team friendly deal. And
Okay.
I really don't think that they would be, knowing their personality and knowing their meaning to this team, that would be a problem. And I know JG has been in, rumor talks for like 3 years, because everybody knows what he brings to the table. Great face-off guy, great 200-foot player, super penalty killer. He's the type of guy that a team that's really heavy in the Stanley Cup um, pool would want on their team, because he plays in big situations and does good things. Anders, big body, can shoot the puck. This year, among most years, to me, is become a faster skater than I've ever seen.
Right.
And he's still got, yeah, there are times where he falls into an abyss and doesn't become a factor. But when he is a factor, he's a big factor. And I think the Islanders as an organization, and I will blame Lou Lamoriello on this, screwed Josh Bailey and screwed Matt Martin for the 1,000 situation. Matt Martin should have had 1,000 games in an Islander uniform. Josh Bailey should have played his 1,000th game at UBS Arena. And those were Lou Lamoriello. I 1,000% believe Lou Lamoriello related situations. Anders Lee bleeds orange and blue through and through. And he played his 900th game the other night. At the end of the game, in the interviews, you could see how emotional he was about it.
Right.
And to me, if this was last year, I would have said maybe. But right now, again, and chemistry comes back to that equation, I say absolutely not. And if anybody disagrees with me, tell me why.
Okay. So we're going to get into, instead of water cooler talk, boys and girls, we, for today, are going to get into coffee and chat instead of water cooler talk, because it's the morning right now. Same concept. Take your questions, comments, concerns, and yeah, we can comment on the enforcer stuff here. Craig, and I agree with you. Plays 13 minutes a night when 48 plays 25 minutes does exactly what for this team? We have enough players that play the bottom six. Let's throw this out there. Okay, we were not told specifically that this enforcer should be playing bottom 6 minutes. I'll throw a name out there: Evander Kane. Evander Kane can play an enforcer role and still score goals. He's middle six. He might be better than Anthony Duclair. He might fit the system better than Anthony Duclair. But again, does, Evander Kane play that 200-foot game? So does this enforcer have to be In the bottom six, no, but I think it's more or less having that player there on the bench to be like, yeah, yeah, don't mess with my teammates, not just Matthew Schaefer. Don't mess with any of my teammates moving forward. There's a threat there. It's something that Matt Martin was always very, very good at. Kevin, there's nothing on the table. There's nothing. That's what we're telling you. There's nothing on there. Nothing on the table right now. I don't think Lou would have signed Lee if Breadman signed here. Maybe. That was the kind of that was the talk back then. Questions, comments, concerns. And I kind of agree with this, but this is something we can talk a little bit more in depth later on. I think the Islanders for now need to keep Lee and Pajot and erase the issues that the Islanders have done in the past in letting their star in letting those veterans go too early and not having their star player play around those veterans. LaFontaine had that problem. And then in 93, 94, 95, we started losing all of those veterans. And then Bertuzzi came in, Palfi came in, you know, uh, Berard to an extent, but Salo came up. All those younger players did not have that talent to play around them. Even if you keep J.G. Pajot and Anders Lee, call it for a short term, you're keeping the locker room intact. You're allowing Matthew Schaefer to still be Matthew Schaefer and still learn over the next couple of seasons. Yes, he's no longer a prospect. He's played over 50 games. But over the next 2 years, folks, he's still going to be developing. He's still going to be growing. He's still going to be learning. And if the Islanders can stay this competitive with what Matthew Schaefer is doing now, imagine what Matthew Schaefer can do in even 2 more years from now. You don't want to lose the chemistry that's in that room. Granted, there is that fear that Lee's numbers and Pajot's numbers probably will decline, or more injuries are going to pick up. But you have a minor league system that is now improving, and they're going to be younger players who are going to be ready to come up. And now Matthew Schaefer will be able to help them put him under his wing and show them what it means to be an Islander like this current team is doing right now. I think this is more about Matthew Schaefer than anything else. And yes, it is about making the playoffs. Yes, it is about the cup. But if you really want the cup, folks, the Islanders have to get rid of cutting those players out and watching your younger players struggle. Yes, Matthew Schaefer has not really struggled, but you know, you look at some of the other younger players, they're not Matthew Schaefer. You got to keep some of these veterans around. Okay. You cannot have Matthew Schaefer doing everything. All right, we're going to touch on this. Thoughts on Kyrou and Thomas Chatter from St. Louis. Um, that's exactly what it's been, Matthew. It's just chatter. Again, doing their due diligence. GMs are supposed to do that. Where would they want to go? No clue. Okay, but Gary, I will say this. I have never seen St. Louis go into a rebuild because I have always learned St. Louis is a team that not only wants to make the playoffs every year, they need to make the playoffs every year because they are on that smaller market team. And yes, Doug Armstrong has been the general manager there. He wants to win every year. He's not into rebuilds. And yes, he is stepping down and Alex Steen is coming in. But I think the owner's mentality and their philosophy is still the same. It's like, okay, look, if we're going to miss the playoffs, fine, but you only have 1 year, maybe two to fix this. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot see, I can't see Jordan Cairo coming over to the Islanders for a first round pick and call it Eklund, Eiserman, and throw in Danny Nelson for fun. Simply because these guys may not even be ready for another 2 years. That's not the way St. Louis works.
No,
It's never worked that way.
they've always been a retool team. You know, they'll do their diligence to work and make deals that are St. Louis friendly. And yeah, you always see them fighting for the playoffs. This is very unusual. And you know, we talked about how Binnington has been big in these huge games, and you know the way the Blues have played this year, it's fallen back to Binnington because to me he's had a very sloppy year. You know, and people were saying, why is he going to the Olympics? Why is he going to the Olympics? Well, he showed why he was going to the Olympics. And in the Four Nations tournament, you saw why they used Jordan Binnington. You know, he's a money goaltender. He's the 2025 version of Billy Smith when you come down to it.
Right.
But I really, you know, as much as a Robert Thomas, and I've loved watching him from the age of 18, how he stepped up. He was one of those retools
Right.
for the Blues in 2018 and 2019 when he came up at that young age and showed immediate talent right away. And it was a big cog in that Stanley Cup run in 2019. So I don't, you know, again, you got to remember there is so many rumor sites on the internet that can drive you to drink. Okay. If you hear it from Elliot Friedman, or you hear it from Frank Saravelli, or you hear it from David Pagnotta, you know,
Mm-hmm.
those guys, the big guys, if you hear it from them, yeah, they're talking. You're hearing it from some site called checkoutmyrumors.com. Don't even bother. Don't even bother because it's all somebody that's just want to get clicks and you know say he's out there. I mean, really, when it comes down to that, that's all I'm looking at. I'm not even looking at Eklund because a lot of that stuff is totally crap anyway. Just pay attention to the big guys and you'll know what's going on.
And I like this. Chemistry makes sense for this season, but the chemistry has not won anything in a very long time. Yeah, call it 40 years. Okay, new chemistry is needed. Sure. Um, I'd rather have the chemistry that they have right now for maybe even this year. Maybe for another 2 years. Okay, instead of having no chemistry at all. And no matter what we're going to do here, Matthew Schaefer, even Matt Barzell, they're learning. They're learning how to win as a team the way they are this year. They're going to have to pass it down to the players coming up. There's
And
nothing
remember,
wrong with. Go ahead.
no, sorry. And just remember now, as opposed to the past, even the past 5 years, you've got a
Sure.
pipeline now. You've
Yeah.
got a viable pipeline, which the Islanders can't say they've had in a long, long, long time. And it'll be the Schaefers and the Barzals and those type of guys that are going to push it, and Matthew push it to these guys coming in. And yes, some of these guys that are coming in are going to be older than Matthew Schaefer, but Matthew's here. And we all know he's infectious. And to me, The one thing I'll say about Barzal, obviously he doesn't have the points everybody wants him to have, but I think his maturity and his attitude plays even a bigger factor than him getting a point a game. I
Right.
mean, to me, I think even though the points aren't there, I think Matt Barzal has had his best season. And that's what you need.
Right.
Because again, indirectly, these guys are making the Simon Holmstroms better. They're making the Cal Richies step up. I mean, I knew Cal Ritchie had talent. We all knew he had talent. And again, the points aren't necessarily always there, but his level of play, his his awareness, his vision,
The
his
IQ.
IQ is great. That was we all hated to see Brock go, but you've got somebody that you can rely on for the next 12 years, and this kid's only going to get better. So all this stuff is manifesting here, and we got to stop looking at making tremendous deals and trying to do all this stuff. Build from within. You've got a pipeline here. I'm telling you this. I won't say the sky is the limit, but we have something as Islander fans we have not had in a long time. Is faith in the future. And you got Matthew Darshan here that is going to make sure that that future grows. I'm telling you this. If you go back and look at the history of the Syracuse Crunch, how effective they've been every single year in the AHL. Who's responsible for that? Matthew Darsh.
And to Matthew's point, St. Louis is in a tough division. The last
Mm-hmm.
thing you want to do right now is a rebuild, especially in that division. You're never
Mm-hmm.
going to get out of it. You're going to turn into the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres, yes, they struggled. They had they had to build their team from within so many times. But that Atlantic Division is now here. Thank God they're in it. But you know, that rebuild has taken 13 years. If St. Louis wants to go into a rebuild now with the division that they're in, St. Louis isn't sniffing the playoffs anytime soon. And
That's
that's
suicide.
the Blues can't
That's
do that.
suicide.
Yeah.
And that's why a St. Louis team always had a retool.
Right.
Regardless of what's happened in the past 10 years, but there's always been solid teams in that division. Colorado's always up there. Dallas is always up there. Minnesota
Right.
is always up there.
Right.
Chicago has it, obviously, and some of the others, and Winnipeg is, well, even though they're having a bad year, there always was in the mix. So you had to keep up with the Johnsons. And if you didn't, you suffered. And that's what Buffalo has done for the past decade plus. And then Kika Leinen came in and says, "We believe in you, stick the course." And that lit a fire under Buffalo. And, for the first time since 2010, 11, they're getting memos for playoff tickets.
Right. Right.
So,
From John, I like, but who are you giving up for him? Thomas has been hurt, I heard, this year. Folks, I've been saying this now for like the last 4 months. This is what we've been told 4 months ago. The NHL wants our farm system. It probably starts with Cal Ritchie. It probably starts with our first round pick, not Colorado's, our first round pick. And maybe another prospect. Maybe it is Danny Nelson. Thomas is a bare minimum second line center on this team. That's what you're going to be looking for. That's going to be the trade. Now, there is some who would make that trade because it's like, look at what Sorokin's doing now. Take advantage of this season and make a legitimate run. Thomas is under contract, and Matthew Darsh has learned under Julian Breezewa. Breezewa does not keep his first round picks. If he has to trade, to make that push, he has done it before. For right now, it doesn't appear that that's the direction Matthew Darsh is going. He may also not have permission to do that just yet. The cap space is going to be a little bit. You're going to have to give up. Then you would have to trade JG Pajot as well in that trade just to make the cap work. But then you'd still be over $2 million and you still have to make another trade. So that would be cascading into maybe 2 trades, maybe 3 trades. You're going to get all of that just to get Thomas, probably just to get Cairo. You would still have to clear $6-7 million in cap space, which if he can do it, God love him. But there are reasons why we were told there's no deals on the table at the moment. That's going to trickle down probably for another day or two, unless something really, really wins over Matthew Darsh. Organic growth is the best. I agree. Good morning, Robin. How are you? We should leave the team alone this year. I love our future. So do I. Do I think improvements could be made? Absolutely. Is that on the Islanders? Not in particular. I'll talk about that as the season moves on, or as, once we finally conclude this season, I'll get into that a little bit more. Um, you know, there's always room for improvement somewhere. Here we go. Robin, we were already talking about it. That was phenomenal. Phenomenal Olympics. So, and there's a lot of fans like Kevin right now. We got to take advantage of this year. Maybe. We've had some key injuries. The upside is we've seen the farm boys, and that's also true. We are still a couple of years away from making splash trades. I kind of agree with that. I think next year, I think you're going to see more forwards show up from Bridgeport or Hamilton, wherever they're playing. I think that's the next time. That's the next trend you're going to see. You're going to see some of those kids that we've been looking at now for years finally turning 24, 25, and be like, okay, you're at that age. Let's see what you can do. Where are your late bloomers in the American Hockey League? If injuries do occur, how low are you going to go? How much of a buffer can these kids now hold with this team? That's going to be the future in another year. You're going to say something?
Does his name Alex Jeffries ring a bell?
Look, Jeffries, Beckman.
Well, I say that only
Maggio.
because you've been a big fan of Jeffries for 4 years.
I have, but my issue with Jeffries at the moment is that he can't stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know.
He can't stay healthy. Maggio's been doing well. Beckman's doing good. I'm just saying there's enough offense blossoming coming out of Bridgeport right now, and I'm really excited for next season that it may all come together next season when you blend in a bunch of the veterans and now your rookies coming in next year. And you mold that team, and then you get to see some of those players that we've been waiting to see finally come up to fill in for like that injury role. That's really what you're looking for. Do you think we see any of our college players this season? Cole Eiserman help on the power play? No. No. The Islanders at this moment, I believe, don't hold me to it. First off, they're full on their active roster, 23 out of 23. So you just can't bring him up without sending someone down. But I believe contract wise, I believe they're at number 48 out of 50. So I don't know if the Islanders are going to do any kind of signings like that. If there's going to be any of them, it might be Danny Nelson. And I stress might. he would be probably the only one. He's a centerman. He's done very well in high pressure games, high pressure situations. Um, he might be the only one. You might do it if those
Here's a
college players are
question.
coming in. Yeah, if those players come in, they would probably, if they do the standard stuff, they'll probably sign a PTO first for the rest of this year, and then the Islanders will give them their contracts to start next season. That's
Actually, you just
usually the
answered.
way they go. Yeah,
Actually, you
that's
just answered
usually
my
the way they go.
question. Could you see Eiserman in a PTO in the AHL?
You could, you could.
With the big club, no, but with the AHL,
No,
definitely.
yeah. Same thing with Danny Nelson. Absolutely.
Hmm. Quinn Finley has how many more years?
Quinn's
One.
ready now. Yeah, I think he would be a senior next year. But
Okay.
Quinn coming in, and we'll talk about this later. But I think Quinn, if he finds out that Nelson, Iserman, or whoever, you're getting all Aitchison, you're getting all these kids coming in next season, you might be a good idea to come in.
Hmm.
St. Louis doesn't want to retain the cap for Cairo Thomas moving forward. Kind of makes sense. That's. Oh, yes, Islanders need an enforcer. There he is. Atta boy.
Oh my goodness.
We'll get back to him in a minute. That makes the cost for a trade a bit more palatable. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a lot to do right now. Now look, he's in a mood, folks. He's definitely in a mood here. Look, is it possible Cairo or Thomas could be here in the offseason? Absolutely. There's much more cap to work with. Usually, a trade like that gets done at that time. But we'll find out. Waiver exempt. I think the only one I think who can go down at the moment is Boquist. I think he's the only one.
Oh, Gatcombe can't, right?
I don't think so. No, I think they've all played enough games where you really just can't send them down.
Hmm.
Lomberg from Calgary. I like his game as much as I hate agreeing with Thomas, but Thomas has been on Lomberg's radar now. Or Lomberg has been on Thomas's radar now, I think, for like the last 6 months. Kind of annoying. Maybe. Yep. This is all that I am not pressing the buttons here, Joe. This is him. This one's his fault today.
It's a shame he gave me
Oh,
power.
yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Folks, listen. The schedule is not looking pretty for the rest of this week. There's a West Coast trip. The trade deadline's in between this West Coast trip. Attaboy, that's the spirit. They got their game tonight against Columbus, and I will say this now, folks. Um, we had a couple of people, I had a couple of friends telling me that, Montreal was a must-win game, and I kind of disagreed with that. It was the first game. It was Montreal, different division. Montreal's pretty much cementing their playoff spot. Not to say it wasn't an important game for the Islanders, but in my humble opinion, I think tonight's game is a must-win. It is an absolute must-win. Um, it's an excellent test. Columbus is one of those teams that still worries me. Um, Columbus to
And
me are the Buffalo Sabres of the Metro Division.
I was just gonna say, and they've been unbelievable since Rick Bowness has taken over the helm.
Yes. Bonus taking over. That's going to be bad for us, great for Columbus. This is a must win. Stealing Rob Tobbs' line here on X. This is a must win for the Isles. And again, moving down the stretch, the Washington Capitals terrify me. I mean, over the next 25, 27 games, if there's a team that can go on a 120 point pace, it's that team, especially when they're this healthy. Um, God forbid Alex Ovechkin decides to play for the rest of this season and end his NHL career on an absolute tear. Um, that's tough to do. 25 games. I think it's something like 20-5, something to that effect. And unfortunately, I think the Capitals can absolutely do it now that they're entirely healthy. Not that I'm hoping for that, but I don't put anything past Washington at this point. That's true. Last trade deadline was in the West Coast, and Brock ended up going to Colorado. So for those of you who like to play the conspiracy theories, you're going back out west. Check out those Western teams. Look for that enforcer, in quotes. We'll do it like that. Who might be a good fit for the Islanders? Go over there. Have fun with that. Oh wait, Joe corrected himself. He needs 25 points in their remaining games to be on the cusp. Agreed. Something like that. Something like that.
That'll put him at 106.
Maybe not 25. Maybe 20. This again, Gary. We saw this a couple of years ago. That eighth place, that final spot had 100 points. They
Yep.
finished with 100 points. I don't think Joe's off. I don't think he's off by that much. Maybe
No,
20.
not really.
Yeah. No, the mindset's there. He's correct. Well, let's not give him too much credit.
96.
The mindset for this
Yeah.
morning, he's right.
Well, sometimes he puts genius.
By noon, I wouldn't listen to a word he says after noon. So no, yeah, 96. It could, yeah. We're in that right time frame. 96 to 100
Yeah,
points. That's what the
without
Islanders are
question.
going to need, right? And as of right now, boys and girls, they are on pace for 98. In case you're wondering, 98, maybe even 99 at this point. I didn't update the standings. What? You know it's true. 14, 8-1. Only need to go 13, 8-1. Okay.
20,
It's 5 or
27.
6
That's
games
98
over.
points. That's
Yeah.
98 points.
The bottom line is, folks, and this is for me, this is the NHL playoffs for the Islanders right now. This is where Matthew Schaefer is going to get tested. This is where Cal Ritchie is going to get tested.
Mhm.
To some extent, this is going to be Gatcombe. Shabanoff, if he ever plays again. These younger players, this is going to be such a learning experience for them, win or lose. If they win, they finally realize what it takes to get into the playoffs. If they lose, they're going to be more motivated they're going to understand what it takes to get in there. But now they're going to be motivated to get themselves back in there. To get back, not only to get back in the hunt, but win this whole thing. So. And it is a fun time to be a fan, no doubt. Islander fans, your playoffs start right now. It starts tonight in Columbus. Sell out as many games as you can. I know we don't have a lot this week. It's just Sunday against Florida, another tough
And
game.
it's going to be every other day for the rest of the year, almost.
Yep. And April, you've got 6 out of the last 7 games at home. If they're in it, sell those babies out. It's March Madness coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So before we sign off, put that there. Let's do this. It is March Madness, folks. For me, it's nothing but the playoffs. It's the Canadian Hockey League playoffs. It's the Memorial Cup. It's the Frozen Four. Uh, I will be watching all of those games. I will be watching all of the prospects. When it comes to prospects and their level of how much they've learned this season or how they are playing, this is the time of year that I really watch and emphasize their talents and their skills. This is where I get most of my data from. Okay. Yes, I'm an amateur at this. Even Shane's giving me a compliment from time to time. It does happen. This is also true. He spelled my name wrong, but yes, I don't have a life in March and April. It does not happen. Um, but I get such a better read from these younger players when they're in the playoffs, when they're in a bigger pressure situation. So all throughout March, a little bit of April, as we try to conclude the season, my draft season begins, and I will be able to tell you what prospect to look for, who's improved, who hasn't, so on and so forth. So for the rest of this year, for the rest of this season, if you guys have any questions on any of the prospects, I'll be able to answer them a little bit better. Or if there's a prospect I think who is really starting to stand out, I'm going to let you guys know. Um, and I think that's going to be important for this organization over, I'm going to say, the next 2 years because they're all now coming together. And the playoffs for me, for all of these prospects, are going to be key. But that also includes Danny Nelson because Danny Nelson won't be in the playoffs with Notre Dame. He could be in the playoffs for Bridgeport. That's a big one. So we'll go from there. All right, folks, this has been fun. We'll do
Indeed.
another more like this. This wasn't too bad. This was nice and
No,
easy.
mornings are fine.
And yeah.
And we don't need Joe.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow us on Isles Talk on X at Isles Talk. Please like and follow us on Facebook. Hit that like on this video and subscribe on YouTube, please. You'll get all the notifications. Oh, you just can't do it. One show without it, huh? One show without it. Can Bridgeport make the playoffs? Yes, they can. They can make the playoffs. Springfield is not that great. Hartford, some of Hartford's already up with New York. And let me tell you something real quick about Matt Luff. Another reason for that trade that most people might be they may not have looked, they may have overlooked. Matt Luff used to play for the Hamilton Bulldogs in the OHL. So if there was a free agent or someone to re-sign who is very familiar with that area, it would be him. So not only are you adding some offense, but you could entice him to go back to his hometown and have him lead as a veteran moving forward for a possible move to Hamilton. We'll leave it at that. So there's another underlying advantage for bringing someone in like Luff with that trade with Gauthier. So there's that. Folks, this has been a blast. Thanks for coming on. Gary, where can they find you, bud?
You keep saying that, and I never get the tweet. But
I know.
at Isles Met 63, because I got a life.
Sometimes he has a life.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. So, alrighty, boys and girls, thank you so much for coming on. I'll keep you posted sometime next week. I'm hoping my schedule gets back in order. And we'll have a proper time slot for all of our shows moving forward. So, other than that, folks, great time. Thanks for coming. And leave your comments below. What's your favorite bagel? And we'll read it later on, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, boys and girls. See you later.